But Preston is
Although
one of
Preston's an old friend.
our old friends. Yes, I was going to
I think you
say
mean
is
longtime friend. You don't want to call me
yeah,
old.
sorry. Is our regular aged. But we have been partnering with Millo, and Preston is the founder. And we have also worked with the Freelance to Founder podcast, which is also amazing. If you love a podcast, highly recommend the Freelance to Founder podcast. And I have also recently been recommending Solid Gigs, which is I don't think it's new. It's new to me, but I don't think it's a new Millo project. Is that right?
Yeah, no, 2017, 18 in there. So
Yeah. So Preston also runs and manages Solid Gigs, which is not Fiverr. It is a lead sourcing place for freelancers, and it is not a race to the bottom like so many freelance sites are. It is genuinely finding great work and great qualified leads for freelancers. So highly recommend Solid Gigs. Don't worry if you haven't written any of that down. I will include all of that in the follow-up email. But we are huge fans of Preston Lee, and I will turn it over to you for your presentation today.
awesome. Really excited to be here, you guys. Thank you so much. We love Moxie too, and of course, so fun to see so many people here. Like I'm seeing Minnesota, Ohio. I saw someone from, we've got Barcelona. I've been to Barcelona, great city. Another Spain. I see a Santiago, Chile. I lived in Santiago for like 2 years, a little over 2 years. I mean, yeah, look at this. The UK, Virginia, a few Ohio's, another UK, like people from all over. This is awesome. Welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Just so excited that you would take time out of your day to chat with me. My presentation today is about passive income, and I'm going to see if I'm smart enough to share my screen. I have been smart enough in the past. We'll see if it actually works. Here we go. There we go. There we go. So today we're going to talk a little bit about passive income. You guys can all see my screen. If there's any questions or concerns, pop it in the chat there. And I think Jeff and Michelle are going to be monitoring questions in chat. If anything comes up, you guys, during the presentation, this doesn't have to be lecture style, although, you know, it tends to be where you can't interrupt me necessarily, but feel free, Jeff and Michelle, if you want to interrupt me with questions as we're going on, you know, pop a question in the chat or in the Q&A. And I'll do my best to answer questions as we go. This is not a please hold your questions till the end sort of situation. Happy to you know, explore things deeper as we go, as you have questions. So let's talk a little bit about passive income. Before we do that, I forgot I need to introduce myself, and Michelle did a good job introducing me. Thank you. I want to tell you a little bit more about who I am and why you should care over the next 15-20 minutes, why you should stick around and listen. So my name is Preston Lee, as Michelle said, and I've been freelancing myself since 2004, or maybe before. It's sort of fuzzy, as many of us experience, right? It's like, when really was my first client or my first project? But I think around 2004, I did an actual project for an actual client in graphic design, and I designed a logo. It was terrible, meaning at the time I thought it was great, but now looking back, it was definitely terrible. But have been freelancing on and off since 2004. In 2009, I launched a blog, which is now millo.co, and it's millo.co. I'll share a little bit more about that later. But started sharing my experience as a freelancer as I was finishing up college, freelancing my way through college, and just sharing my experience, you know, everything I was learning about working with clients, about how much I should charge, about processes and building a business, a freelance business. And I started sharing that just sort of casually as an experiment on a blog. Well, that evolved into what now today is, of course, our blog at Millo, but we've got the podcast that was mentioned previously. We've got lots of products. We've got the subscription product. We have a newsletter, a Facebook group. Like, we have all these resources to coach freelancers. And we've been working closely with freelancers of all kinds since 2009, to figure out what are really the pain points of freelancing and how can we help ease those pain points. And most of the stuff that we do is free. The blog is free, the newsletter is free, the Facebook group's free. A lot of it's free. And we partner with great companies like Moxie to to connect with the freelancers in our audience, but a lot of, and they make it so that a lot of our stuff can be completely free to the end user. So we really appreciate that. So essentially we do this, like I said, in 3 ways. Millo.co is our main website. You can see lots of free content there, lots of helpful content on growing your freelance business. That we've got some YouTube videos, lots and lots of articles. You can search there. Any questions you have about freelancing, you can search there. Freelance to Founder is our podcast. I co-host it with this great guy named Clay. I'm going to talk about him a little bit later in the presentation, but Clay is killer. He started as a freelancer and he has since built and sold 2 6 and 7 figure agencies. And so he knows a lot about going from being a freelancer and sort of struggling, feast famine, to being a founder and running an agency. And so he and I, together with our experience, we coach freelancers essentially live on this podcast. You can call in with your biggest questions. We'll walk you through it. And then quite often we'll see 6 months later, the people who we've had on our show, thanks to a lot of their hard work and some of our advice, have just gone massive with their freelance business or their agency, whatever they're trying to grow. And so that's a fun podcast to listen to. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts, Freelance to Founder. And then of course, as was mentioned, Solid Gigs is another way we help freelancers. We have a team of human beings that go out and find leads for you. And I don't need to belabor that at all, but if you're looking for an easier way to find your next freelance job, that's a great way to do it, is Solid Gigs. All right, so let's talk about passive income. I want to talk about what passive income is and what passive income is not. And maybe we could do like a quick interaction thing here. So post in the chat or in the Q&A. What's better, guys? Chat or Q&A for these kind of things?
The chat is great. Thank you. Great question.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so post in the chat what you think passive income is, or maybe buzzwords you've heard around passive income. Just like, what is, if you had to explain what passive income is in like 5 to 10 words, what would you say to someone? So we're going to watch for here. We're going to watch here. I'm going to scroll through these. Making money while you sleep, making money on vacation, money that appears while I sleep. Love it. Free money. Okay. Money received without a lot of work, money while sleeping. I'm getting a lot of this, like, I don't have to do anything to get money. Auto money maker. You guys are describing what people perceive passive income to be really well. Create once and make money off of it. Alexa Phillips, you nailed part of this presentation. So create once and make money off of it. No longer trading time for money. Yes, Josh, that's exactly right. Doing the work once, then money flows. That's right. Awesome. Awesome. You guys are great. Look at this. Yeah, these are great responses. Build long time in advance. Let the build pay. Residuals. Good. So there's lots of ideas around what passive income is. Let me tell you what I think passive income is and what it is not. And this comes from, again, years of coaching freelancers on traditional freelance models versus passive income models. So sorry to say, there were a couple of you that said this, maybe, hopefully you said it a little bit tongue in cheek, but passive income, unfortunately, is not free money. It's not just like tapping into these flowing sources of free money. As far as I know, at least, those don't exist. But what it is good money. You can make good money from passive income. It requires some work, which we'll talk about, but there's definitely money to be had, particularly for freelancers in passive income. It's also not zero work income. You can get to the point where it's minimal work, but it certainly requires some work, particularly upfront. So what I like to call it is leveraged work. You leverage the work up front and you get to reap the benefits on the back end and for a long time in perpetuity. Passive income is not necessarily the easy way. You know, people dream of, like, there was one comment that said, you know, sitting on the beach making money or making money in my sleep. And while that can be partly true, I'm seeing lots of comments, outrage. What, no magic money tree? Yeah, I'm sorry to say, there's just not, that I know of, a money magic tree. But I think passive income is the strategic way to build your business. And to me, there's a whole range of possibilities in passive income, right? And so we're going to talk about a few of those. There are some that are definitely more hands-off and some that I would still consider passive income, even though you have to be a little bit more involved. But I want to show you how I sort of visualize traditional freelancing versus passive income. You can see, now I don't know, can you guys see my mouse? Like if I point to things? Yeah, okay. So you can see in a traditional freelancing model, and maybe most of us are doing this, we sell our work, right? We find a client, we pitch the work. Once we sell them on it, we complete the work, we do the project, and then we get paid. And as soon as we get paid, we're back to this idea of having to sell again. And that's often what causes this feast or famine cycle, is while we're so busy working, we forget to be selling, right? And so this is a very traditional freelance model. We sell, we work, we get paid. So let's explore another model. If you can upgrade your freelance work to retainers or a recurring revenue model, you only have to sell once. You maybe sell a client on a retainer and you say, you know, for X amount every month, I will do this amount of work, right? And then you do the work and you get paid. You don't have to go back every month and resell your client on the idea of working with you. And so this is a retainer or recurring revenue model, and a great way to run a freelance business. Even better, in my opinion, is if you can do the work once, right? It minimizes the work, and you can sell it over and over, get paid for it again, sell, get paid, sell, get paid. Now, I'm not going to pretend like this sell piece isn't work sometimes, but what we're talking about is doing the work of building an asset. Some of you mentioned that in the chat. Building something that you can sell over and over again, because the selling becomes the minimal work, as opposed to, you know, this traditional model. This work is, it takes so much of your time, and where time is your biggest asset as a freelancer, these models, these two models, particularly this passive income model, can leverage, again, we said leveraged work, right? So this can leverage the work that you do to then generate income long into the future. So why should we care about passive income? So I have another noob question here. I haven't done a Zoom presentation in a while. If I have the chat on the screen, does that block what's on my screen? No. Okay, I'm seeing no. So I'm going to just keep moving that around like a crazy person, and you guys can't see what I'm doing. So why passive income? Here are some questions that are sometimes tough to answer, right? So first, how many hours do you have in a day? And then until what age can you actually work as a freelancer? And when you're done working, what's going to happen to your business, right? So these are tough questions, particularly the last two. When you start to stare down your freelance career in its entirety, right? And you say, how old can I actually work till, and what happens to my business? Because as you grow your freelance business, if we stick to that traditional model, more clients is always going to mean more time and more work, right? And so there's a finite amount of time you have individually as a freelancer. And as soon as you book as that many clients and fill up that amount of time, you're out of time. You literally cannot grow your business. If it's only you as a freelancer, you can't grow it past the amount of time that you have if you do solely the traditional freelance model, right? Same with as you get older, and when you decide you're done working, if you are working on a traditional freelance model, at that moment, you're done billing. There's no residual income coming from clients. Unless you book a new project, you are out of revenue, right? And so then the question is, will you be any better off when you're done with your freelance career, at the end of your freelance career, than you were when you started? And in many cases, the sad truth is, unless you've built in some sort of passive income or recurring income, or you've built an asset that you can sell, you're not any better off when you finish your freelance career than when you started. And so that's why we should care about passive income. Okay, so I'm going to talk about maybe 4 elements of passive income. This is obviously not strict. There are certainly examples that fall outside of these ideas, but the best passive income that I've found contains these 4 elements. So first is the investment. Here's what I'm going to do actually while we're going through these 4 elements. I'd love for you to comment in the chat things you can think of in your freelance business or outside of your freelance business that meet these 4 requirements. Okay, so for example, when you're working on passive income, it first takes initial investment. It says the initial price. That could be work, that could be money, that could be strategy, that could be time, right? So whatever the initial investment is, okay, once you've made that initial investment, your investment should generate income, repeat revenue at some point, where over and over again, it can generate income without having to put in that investment again of time, money, effort. Then ideally, in a perfect world, the investment you made will appreciate. It'll increase in value. And then again, in a perfect scenario, you'll be able to exit where you can actually sell the thing you've been working on and recoup a lot of the effort and money that you spent here. And so you make money off of this, what you've built, over and over and over again, and then you also make money at the end. So I'm seeing in the chat a digital course, a workbook, a guide, project management template, journal, SaaS, software as a service, website templates. Yeah, lots of, okay, these are great ideas. Live training courses, working on a self-paced course, Becca says. So great, these are great responses. Thank you. Yes, so let's talk about in a traditional setting outside of a freelance business, some examples you've maybe seen in the real world of passive income. Okay, so real estate, for example, let's say you purchase a home. The investment is the initial price to purchase the home. Then you rent out the home, you get monthly rent, monthly income. The home costs rise, which means the value of the home increases, and then you can sell the home, right? Very, very basic example of passive income. Now, does that mean you never have to go fix something at the home, or you don't have to hire a property manager? No, there are things that are going to happen along the way. This is not making money while you're sitting on the beach, right? But there's definitely money being made without you putting in all the effort here like you would in a traditional model. The stock market's also another traditional way people make passive income. For example, you buy a stock, you make quarterly dividends, the stock market goes up, and then at the end you sell the stocks and generate passive income that way. So let's talk about a friend of mine, Dustin. So Dustin, I'm seeing, hold on, I'm going to pause. I'm seeing some great comments here in the chat. Selling artwork on Etsy, stock photos, affiliate marketing. And then there's some questions. So hold on to those questions. I think those are great. Yeah, would stock photos have to be a marketplace? Yes, probably. You could certainly build your own way to sell them, but we'll talk about marketplaces a little bit down the road. In fact, let's talk about Dustin and his story. That can maybe help this question from Shalina. So Dustin, excuse me just a minute. So Dustin is a graphic designer, and he decided years and years ago that he was going to, instead of following just the traditional freelancer model, find a client, design some work, give them the work, get paid for it. He was going to create elements, design elements that he could sell on a marketplace. And so he invested time and effort to design elements like textures, fonts, backgrounds, all these things that a graphic designer or a non-graphic designer might be able to use as they're building up design elements, brand elements, okay? And then he listed them on marketplaces, which obviously took some time and effort as well. If you're familiar with Creative Market or Design Cuts, those are the kinds of marketplaces that he listed his design work. He ended up building up that business to over $250,000 per year, selling assets that he created once, selling them over and over and over, and becoming one of the most valuable sellers on these marketplaces that he was on. And so developed a great relationship, got lots of high reviews. And so as he got reviews and as he had a good selling history, the value of the marketplace shop began to rise, and the value of the library in whole, as he added new elements every month or every quarter, it began to grow, right? And so we're following this pattern that we talked about. Now, Dustin hasn't done this yet, but if he gets to the point that he wants to retire, as it were, he could sell all of the assets and all of the existing shops or pay someone to manage them for him, and he would have either a nice exit or passive income in perpetuity, despite not technically working in his career. So there's one example of a graphic designer who has built a really great flow of passive income into his business. I'm going to pop into the chat again. Yeah, Monica mentions AI has opened some great new opportunities. That's very true. Becca, you're curious to see the exit. So yeah, so Becca, I'd love to hear if that makes sense. So the exit would be Dustin, in this case, selling the assets to someone else to continue selling, or paying someone to manage that and get the residual income for as long as he wants. Some are asking if this is available after. Sounds like yes. Anything to add, Moxie? Okay. Maybe.
It's available. I mean, it'll be posted in Facebook, emailed out to everybody, and on our website.
Cool. Let's, I want to share another story of my friend Chelsea. Chelsea Baldwin is a copywriter, and she loves working with businesses to really punch up their copy, and she's got some great chops in the copywriting world. She had an idea a few years ago where she would invest in creating a space where copywriters could learn from one another. Okay, so you've seen this all around the web, people doing communities where they just say, look, like-minded people, let's come together and let's figure out what we can learn from each other, right? Synergy. And so she created a space where copywriters could learn from one another. She brought in monthly subscriptions from these community members. And over time, the more members that were in this community, the more value the community had, right? When the time comes, if she wants to, she can sell the community or she can hire someone to manage it. And those monthly subscriptions will continue to come into her business with minimal work on her end. If she wants to hire someone to handle all the work, she can bring in residual passive income, or she can sell the community again for a nice exit. Let's talk about one last one. My friend Clay, who I mentioned earlier, he's the co-host on my podcast, Freelance to Founder. And Clay has built, as I said, a number of very successful agencies. He started as a freelance web designer, and he started selling. He just started as a traditional freelancer, feast famine. He was really working through it, and he decided there was this. He says there's this moment where he decided, instead of charging $5,000 for one website once, he was going to charge $200 a month at the time for a 24-month contract with a client who wanted a new website. And he said that changed everything. His business exploded. He ended up having to hire, I think, more than 20 people. He started making seven figures in a year, and eventually, I'm giving away, I guess, the ending here, so I'll tell you what eventually happened. But so he built up to $1 million, over $1 million in recurring client revenue from that model, that $200 a month client website model. The more client contracts that he had, the more predictable the revenue became, and so the business became worth more, right? It appreciated, and that made it so that he could sell his agency. When he was done working there, he sold it to his partner, and it was worth infinitely more than when he started, because now they had all these recurring client contracts. So those are three examples of ways you could build passive income, of very concrete examples. Now, as I said, not every example is going to fit into that 4 elements. Most of them will if you look hard enough, but there are other examples I want to share just to sort of inspire you. So you can upcycle unused assets. Designers could upload and sell unused designs on marketplaces. Writers could pitch unused articles to different publications. You can automate client products. So for example, I had a friend who was a marketer, and he wanted to build a social media prompt calendar for his clients. And so instead of doing all the work and charging them for it, some clients didn't want to pay for that. So instead he had this, $100 a month or $50 a month social media promotion calendar they subscribe to. They pay a subscription fee, and then he just sets it up ahead of time and checks on it every once in a while, and they're able to subscribe to that. A lot of you in the chat talked about create once, sell on repeat. And so for this, particularly photographers, videographers, you can create some stock photos or some stock videos, or, this works for graphic designers as well. Like we talked about Dustin's story, you create it once, you sell it on repeat over and over again. And really the work becomes selling it, not creating it. You can develop a premium tool. I know some SEOs that have worked to build like an audit tool, their own proprietary audit tool, and then they charge a client for a report, and it also, or in some cases it becomes a lead magnet, but in a lot of cases they charge for the report, then it becomes passive income as well. Outsourcing the work, I think, is important to think through how that could be passive income, because a lot of times we think like, what can I build now and then sell and repeat over and over again? The truth is you could actually do that with a service, but outsource the work. And so again, with my friend Clay's example, you can charge a monthly subscription for website updates, and then just build a ticketing system that sends to the web designers that you've hired. It takes some managing. You could also hire a manager, frankly, and this could become very hands-off part of your business. And then obviously you can build passive income into existing processes in your business. For example, if you're a web developer, you can provide hosting for your clients' websites and just upcharge on that. So there would be opportunity to build in some passive income there. I think it's important just to recap this. So passive income relies on primarily doing the work once, doing the work up front, making this initial investment, and then selling and getting paid over and over again, right? This is that repeat revenue. As you do that, as that wheel turns over time, this grows, right? And the business or the product appreciates. It increases in value, and it gives you an opportunity to either exit or find someone to run it for you in perpetuity. This, in essence, this screen is how I view passive income for freelancers. If you can ideate, brainstorm a few ways that you can do work once, sell it over and over, and get paid in a way that it appreciates, you can brainstorm as many ideas as you can possibly come up with, and one of those ideas is definitely going to stick. It's going to take some experimenting. It's going to take some work. Coming back to the initial chat, right? It's not free work or not free money, but it is good money, and it's not necessarily easy, but it is leverage. So you maybe do more work up front and reap the benefits for a longer period of time. But I encourage you to look through this, maybe screen capture this, and again, this recording will be available later as well. And then brainstorm either with you or with your team a few ways that you can experiment with some passive income this year. I think that's all I have for you today. I'd love to do some Q&A, some if there's anything I left out, or if you feel like I got something wrong, I'd love to chat about it too. So I think the chat's open, the Q&A is open. However we want to handle that, I think Michelle and Jeff are going to take care of that, and we'll roll with it.
Yeah. First question that we have here is, can you explain more how unused articles can become passive income?
Yeah, good. So I suppose more than passive income. Well, here's a couple ideas. So first of all, I think that idea of unused articles is just making sure you capture the income for the work that you already did, right? So I've worked as a freelance writer at times, and I'll pitch an article to a publication and they'll decline it, which happens, and that's fine. Then the question becomes, how can I take this asset, right? This thing I've worked on, and how can I leverage it? And some opportunities are going to be better than others. You might get passive income out of some opportunities more than others. But I would say you could either, if you have a blog or publication of your own, I've done this, where if something got declined, I'll publish it on my own, and we'll capture residual advertising income or affiliate income or sponsorship income over time from that piece of content. Or you could pitch it to someone else as well, another publication. If they accept it, then that could potentially lead to more business. It's certainly not a perfect example, but I think there are ways you could look through that. Hopefully that's helpful.
I want to ask this one, and then Jeff has a question. Oh, go ahead.
I think my question, hopefully it's quick, but when you're developing these assets or whatever you're developing up front, right, there's risk involved because you're doing speculative work. How do you think about, like, in this context, how do you think about balancing the risk of doing too much work up front? Like, do you have any tips on testing your ideas before maybe investing a ton into it?
That's such a great question. I'm so glad you asked. Yes, I have lots of thoughts on this. I'll try to keep it somewhat brief, but so Clay and I have talked about this on our podcast a lot. We've both done this in our businesses with great success, and that is, you can pre-sell something to gauge interest, right? And we've actually sold things. We did a 5-day recurring revenue challenge with a bunch of freelancers, and we sold all of the tickets to that before we ever developed the curriculum. We sort of had a rough outline, right? But we wanted to gauge interest based on an outline. And so we took 20 minutes, 30 minutes, built an outline, knowing that we could deliver on the back end, right? But and then we pre-sold it. We threw up a landing page that took me maybe an hour or two to write and put online. And then we sold that. And because people actually got out their credit card, signed up for it, we knew that it was worth pursuing and putting the work into it. So I think that's one way, is pre-selling is a great way. Not just saying, like, would you buy this, or is this interesting to you? Because people will say yes to boost your ego or to be kind, or even they might genuinely think that they would. But if people actually get out their credit card, type it in, and purchase something from you as a pre-sell, that's a great indicator if something's going to work. And so that for me is maybe the biggest way to do that, Jeff.
Really good.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of related to this. We had a question about marketing. So what tips, or what's the best way to go about marketing your work that you've created?
Yeah, I think that's going to depend a lot on what you've done, right? If you're leveraging marketplaces to sell, for example, let's take Dustin Lee's example. If you're designing elements and selling them on a marketplace, or you're a videographer, photographer, you're selling those assets on a marketplace, that marketing is going to look a lot different, because what you're going to want to do is figure out, what are the algorithms on the marketplace that get me to the top of the listings when people search, textured backgrounds? How do my textured backgrounds show up in the top 3 of those lists? And so, that's going to be a different consideration. I don't know the answers necessarily to those, where I haven't done that particular business model. But that's consideration. And so if you're not using marketplaces, then it becomes the traditional marketing methods, right? And you have to lean into what you're good at. If you're doing the marketing, my philosophy around marketing is you have to lean into what you're good at, what takes the least amount of time, and what shows the biggest results. Where those 3 circles intersect, that's where you spend your time. And just because TikTok is working amazingly for someone else, if you're not into TikTok, like, that's not going to work well for you, right? Because it'll show. And so it's important to focus on where you're getting results, where it's easiest and most exciting for you, and where it takes the least amount of time. And if you can do that, you'll find some good marketing channels. And unfortunately, it's going to be different for everybody. So I can't say like, the perfect one is, Instagram or whatever. It's going to be different for every project.
No, I love that framework. So we've got a few questions about like really specific, like what are passive income ideas for X. So like the questions are for life coaches, for animators, and for virtual assistants. So maybe even kind of addressing like, okay, how do you generate those ideas for yourself for passive income?
Products. So they want me to do the work for them. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm if you're going to give some passive income ideas for virtual assistants, I'm all ears.
Awesome. Yeah. Get out your notebooks. No. So, okay. So let's talk specifically about a couple of them. Then we'll talk about how to brainstorm. We'll essentially brainstorm here live. Right. So we had, what was the first one?
Life coaches.
A life coach. So I'm not super familiar with the offering of a life coach, what your product offering is, but it's my understanding that you offer regular coaching sessions. So that's very traditional, or maybe even recurring model, right? It's like maybe someone signs up a certain amount per month and they get 2 coaching sessions a month or something like that. If I'm misunderstanding, I apologize. So there could be ancillary products, additional upsell products that you could add to that flow. And so maybe if you have a client who wants to explore this other thing, but it doesn't require you to be in the same room coaching them on something, they could go review a course that you've created, a book that you've written, some sort of information product that you've created for maybe an additional fee. Or maybe you have different packages. And so one is like, this is just for coaching sessions. Like package A just includes coaching sessions. Package B includes coaching sessions plus access to my entire library of helpful courses and books and whatever. And maybe package 0 is just access to the courses, and that's pure passive income, right? People that you don't actually put through your coaching sessions, but that essentially get monthly access to those assets that you build. So hopefully that's helpful for that one. What was another one, Michelle?
An animator is another one.
Yeah. To me, this falls in with like videographers, photographers. I don't know. I know there's places you can buy like video transitions, and I assume there's somewhere you can buy animations. I don't know. I'd have to give that one some thought. I'd love to hear in the chat if anyone has any ideas on how an animator could build some passive income.
I think for some business models, like passive income is just scaling the business without you having to do all the work. It's one of your categories, but like some businesses, like that is the passive income. You got 15 animators under you and you're out there taking people to dinner to close new deals. Like that's passive income, right? And you're just helping to do the sales process while the system you built on the other side. So not everything is going to have a nice little bow around a product that you can sell to somebody.
Yeah. Very well said. If you think about, obviously, when you think animation, Walt Disney comes to mind. And I've watched a fair amount of documentaries on Walt Disney. And one thing he did somewhat early on was he hired these, they were called, how are they called? This animator, who's the animator? Let's see. I can't find him, but
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to butcher pronouncing your name. Ndawe. Nope. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I butchered your name.
That's all right. Sorry to put you on the spot, but essentially what Walt Disney did early in his career was he hired like in between animators. And so he had him and other really talented animators would do like the main frames, and then he would hire, to Jeff's point, sort of less professional or less talented animators who just did the between frames to cut down on costs for that. And then eventually he wasn't animating anything ever, right? And they were creating entire movies where he was the visionary and he was guiding the business. And so certainly his work wasn't passive income necessarily, but you could get to the point where, yeah, like Jeff said, you're booking the clients. You can even hire that piece out, right? You could the idea is like, how do I remove myself from the business as much as possible, if that's what you want? You don't have to do that, but certainly it's on topic for today. So I'm seeing some ideas in the chat real quick for animators. I guess there's a marketplace called Sketchfab or ArtStation. You can promote and sell your work there. Marketplaces like Motion Array, Video Hive, Shutterstock, yep, Adobe Stock, intros for YouTube creators. Yeah, potentially, right? But if you're creating a new one for each YouTuber, then that's not passive necessarily, but definitely some ideas there. So yeah, good ideas. How are we doing on answering that question?
Yeah, let us know if you have you have more follow-ups or more questions. There's another question about how relevant are Facebook communities to generate brand awareness?
Very can be. I mean, I think you guys maybe have more experience there than I do.
I don't know. You have a pretty great Facebook community as well.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that brings up, right, there's the idea of building your own community, which is what I've done more of. And then leveraging other communities that already exist, which I feel like maybe you guys have done a little bit of. Maybe I'm misspeaking.
Yeah, I mean, I think, however you want to show up in a community, like I forget, I think it was Ashley Cummings in her workshop talked a lot about how that is how she has grown her network, and through that grown her business is basically through Facebook communities. So
yeah.
Anyway, and
yeah, definitely
Chelena, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you're good.
I was just going to say, Chelena pointed out that we skipped virtual assistants in our brainstorming session.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Trying to decide if there was a reason for that. So virtual assistant, again, it varies so much based on what kind of work you do for people. A virtual assistant is such a broad description, right? But I'm wondering, like, maybe there are tools, and maybe you follow this same idea of the life coach, where maybe there are tools that you've developed for clients, and it's like, if you can afford my top tier, I'll do it all for you. But if you want something a little more affordable, then I can do some things for you, and these other things I have templates, right, that I've built, and these templates, you fill them out and they help you do the work yourself or something like that. So I think this tiered idea ends up being really helpful when you're freelancing and need passive income, because it doesn't mean that all your work is going to go away. What it means is, like, there might be a tier where you build some passive income with some resources, some templates, some scripts, and then there might be another tier where you're still doing that traditional freelancer model or the recurring revenue model. But yeah, that might work on a virtual assistant level, where you develop resources for one client and you start to store them in this asset library. I think quite often as a freelancer, we do that, right? We develop something for a client and then we just move on to the next client, and this thing sits in archives somewhere and we never use it. The question is, like, what assets am I building anyway that I could then leverage for future income?
Yeah, that's super related to our workshop 2 weeks ago with John Saunders. Highly recommend going and watching that one. But that is kind of what it was all about, is paying attention to your process, write it all out in detail, and then you can sell that process.
I love that.
So anyway, it was amazing. You can get all of our past workshops on our website as well, but definitely recommend that one. So we have 1 minute left. Laura had asked, are there people out there who take a freelancer with a really good idea or product and help them convert passive income and market for a percentage? I'll just maybe throw that out there for you.
That's a good question. I don't know of anyone who does that. I know Dustin that I had mentioned earlier. If Laura, if you happen to be a designer, I know Dustin has an entire course on following the same process that he followed, which could be helpful potentially. You know, even if you're not a designer, it might be helpful. I know he's very specific on design stuff, but I don't know of anyone particularly. Certainly maybe there should be, but.
Love it. Well, we are at the end of our time. So Preston, thank you so much for this. Again, we'll send all of this out to everyone along with the deck and links to resources. As always, we love to get to spend time with you in these workshops. And we have another one coming up in 2 weeks. If you've ever had questions about Instagram and why the algorithm is confusing and why there are so many different features, next week I'm 2 weeks. September 6th is for you and how to use and leverage Instagram's tools for your business. So we will see you back here in a couple weeks. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you in a
Thanks,
couple
guys.
weeks. Thanks, Preston.
Yep. Take care.
Take care.